Hey everyone, welcome to Watching Me Knit this week. If you're hoping to watch me knit something historically inspired this week, unfortunately I wasn't able to finish my project on time, so I thought that I would show you something else that I had been working on just for fun. I have a lot of fairy lights around. You might have seen it laying across my workspace. I still have a ton, and as I'm working on my knitting, a lot of times it would kind of wrap around my needles and I would get annoyed, but I kind of thought, what if I give in? Like, what if I actually try knitting with all the fairy lights that I have laying around? So I decided to use up some of this bulky Knit Picks Brava that I have laying around, as well as I put on some really thick needles. These are size 10.5. Yep, size 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter needles. I thought maybe knitting something big and bulky would help me actually bend the copper wire around the needles and get the knitting stitches done. I decided to knit something that was maybe a little appropriate for the season, so I picked a really nice tank top pattern that I found. Please keep watching if you wanted to see me work on knitting with fairy lights for fun, and if you're more interested in historical stuff, tune back next week and I should be done with my project then. I started by casting on enough stitches for 7 repeats of the lace border at the bottom of the bamboo tank top pattern that I chose, which I'll link down below. And then in the next round, my first round, is when I decided to add in the fairy lights. They were definitely more difficult to bend around the needles than I expected, but it did actually work out pretty well using the metal needles because everything slid really well. I think the funnest part of this project though was being able to knit with the lights off. I just used the fairy lights to guide where my needles would be going, and I think it actually had a really cool effect with how the lights kind of poked through the stitches on my needles. I think I spent more time looking at what the lights look like within the actual stitches than I did knitting on this project. And trust me, I have so much more footage of this, but I honestly thought it looked really, really cool. After about one round of knitting with the fairy lights, I ran out of length on the first pack. So I went back to the store and I ran and I got way more lights, which was an awesome excuse to buy like 20 battery operated lights. I decided to go for battery operated just so I wouldn't have to plug myself in when I was wearing this. And so you can see here that I finished about a half a round with my new set of fairy lights. It was about 6 feet per half a round I found for my knitting gauge, so I ended up with about 3 strings of lights. I decided to stop after 3 just so that I wouldn't have to be carrying around so many battery packs. So I stopped after I finished with the lace bottom section of the tank top. And here you can see kind of how that looks like. I finished the front portion of the tank top here and I laid it out and I just absolutely love the effect. I couldn't wait to try it on, and at this point I had put it on just a few times. So I'm finishing up the sleeves here, and then I used the Kitchener stitch to sew the front and the back of the sleeves together. I think I twisted the stitches a little bit on this one, but I did that to both sleeves on both of the sides, and then I was ready to try on my top. And here you can see how it looks in the daytime, turning it on and off. My facial expression might be a little bit strange because I had to concentrate quite a bit to actually get the lights to turn on because I was coordinating 3 battery packs. So here you can see I'm holding up 3, so with only 2 hands I was trying to get them all to turn on at the same time, so you get some great facial expressions as I'm trying that out. And then I wanted to show a little bit more close up what it looked like, and in the dark. I thought this was the coolest effect of turning the lights on and off in the dark. Now, like I said, I bought a lot of fairy lights and I thought maybe there's one more thing that I can do with them. Maybe I can knit with just the copper wire of the fairy lights themselves. I'm pretty sure that this was very rough on my hands, but it was really cool. So I knit as many stitches as I could with one 6-foot length of lights. And then I took a second string of fairy lights and I just cast off those stitches. So it's just a cast on and a cast off, which isn't much, but I already had 2 heavy battery packs, so I didn't want to add any more weight to what I was doing because once I got going, I thought that this would look really cool as like a little headband. I really like how the stitches ended up looking kind of woven together in a really neat effect. I think I've seen some jewelry that looks kind of like this, but I'm assuming, or at least I hope, that the copper's a little less thick because it really took a toll on my hands as I was trying to get this like knit together. But here's the crown. I ended up connecting it so it looked pretty in pictures. I really liked turning it on and off. It was a little bit easier this time to do that because there's only 2 battery packs, so I could have an on and off button for each finger. So you can see I ended up undoing the headband just so that it would fit around my head. And here's my little fairy light headband, or I don't know, crown maybe you could call it, of course on my porch with more of the lights in the background as well. As you can tell, I'm very pleased with myself in this with this headband, and I really like the effect with all the lights off as well. It kind of gave this halo effect. My dog was kind enough to model this for us as well, and don't worry, she got a bunch of treats for being a very good girl when she was trying this headband on. So everyone, thank you again for watching this week. I had a lot of fun knitting this up. Next week I'll go back hopefully to my historical projects, and I will link everything below, all the patterns that I used and the supplies that I used, in case anyone else wants to try this as well.